breaking news from Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
I'm David Navarro, and we are following breaking news out of Orange County. A passenger bus has gone down an embankment off Interstate 84. This is in Wawayanda. These are live pictures from News Carpenter 7. You can see the bus on its side, and there is a massive police response to this crash. It happened within the last 30 minutes. We are told dozens of passengers were on board that bus. Several have been rushed to area hospitals. This is all happening near mile marker 11 in the westbound lanes. New York State Police say I-84 is closed at exit 15 as a result. We know Orange is being used as I should say SUNY Orange is being used as a family reunification center to help anybody who had people on this board. But you can see right now it's causing a massive backup in the area as well. What we don't know is we don't know where this bus was going. We don't know where this bus came from. And of course, we still don't know what caused the accident. You can see the bus is this accident is causing a massive backup on I-84. This is closed at exit 15. This is right by Goshen. It's not far from, and many of you may know the area from Legoland. It's not too far from Legoland in the Orange County area, but there is the bus on the side where it tumbled. Clearly, it came down, rolled down that hill to some extent and landed right there in the bush down that embankment. You can see some first responders at the scene right now taking a close look. Again, this happened a short time ago. A passenger bus heading on Interstate 84 had just gotten into the Wawayanda area as something happened along the road, causing the driver to come tumbling down into the area that you're looking at right now. We're not seeing any emergency eradications at this point. That does not mean there is nobody inside that bus right now. We just don't know from our vantage point. You can see that ladder is leading up to one of the side entranceways to get to access to this bus. But we have been told that others have been removed and taken to the hospital. We know of reports of a medevac helicopter being called in and another one being put on standby. Again, this is happening so early, so we're looking for really some understanding of what happened and where it happened in terms of the situation and where we're coming into it right now. But you can see clearly a massive accident with a bus. Well, we're trying to get more information. I want to bring in retired FDNY firefighter Bob O'Brien. Bob, you've been with the fire department for 14 years before you retired. 1993, you were at the World Trade Center bombing where you worked on rescues there. When you see this image, when it comes to a first responder, what's your first thoughts?
The first responders' first thoughts are the life of the people on board that bus. Getting inside and making sure that the appropriate first aid is administered immediately and saving lives.
You know, what always scares me at a bus like that is that often people are not wearing seat belts. It's a situation where people can be thrown around, and it clearly would be something that would happen suddenly. How does that add to the issue in terms of getting people out of that, a vehicle like that?
More often than not, they're not wearing seat belts, and they are tossed around like paper dolls, and that adds to the final injuries, and some of them are just devastating. You know,
another problem I can see right off the bat is the terrain where it takes to get rescuers to the bus, and of course the traffic problem that is caused by this accident. As I said before, I-84 is closed right there at exit 15, and as a result, there is a massive backup on the road. So getting people to this area is not going to be easy, correct?
No, that's not going to be easy. And, a lot of those areas, they're volunteers. And it takes time to get the volunteers to those apparatus to respond to the scene of the accident. So that's just added time. It's a tragedy all around. But the first responders are doing everything they possibly can to ensure that everybody is given proper treatment and administer first aid and transport people as necessary to local hospitals.
You know, I'm trying to make sense of what I'm seeing right now. It's hard to tell if there is a rescue effort underway or if they were able to get everybody out of there yet. What can you tell when you're looking at it right now? Because I don't see a rush occurring. It looks like they're assessing the bus and on the different entranceways right now.
Actually, I saw just a couple of still pictures of it. I'm in transit right now, so I wasn't able to see any video of it. But from the still shots, New York State troopers are on the scene. I'm sure that local fire departments or extrication experts are en route, or if not already on the scene.
Okay, Bob. Yeah, I'm going to tell you. Go ahead.
Exit 15 is an area where, it's still not further upstate, so it's accessible to a few different fire departments up that way.
Right, and I imagine you're going to have a bunch of them coming in to help out as best they can. We also learned a little bit more about this bus. It was on its way to Pennsylvania. I'm going to assume coming out of New York, but I can't say that for sure. But I can tell you that it was on its way to Pennsylvania, and we're just learning now that this bus was carrying a high school band on board, Farmingdale High School Band, which is, of course, news that's going to frighten a lot of family and friends from Farmingdale, anxious to find out that everything is okay. Apparently, they were attending a band camp, which we're still waiting to get the final word on that, but we wanted to get the word out as fast as we had, that we have this information, that among the passengers, high school band is on board that bus, Farmingdale. So young people, it's scary for anybody to be involved in an injury, even more frightening when you think children might be involved. Bob, how do you even deal with a situation like this?
It's hard to even put that into words, David. It's, especially when children are involved. You get on a bus, you're traveling to an event, and one of the last things that enters your mind is, a tragic accident like this. So all we can do is offer up our prayers for the families and the students on board that bus, and just pray God that everything, it comes out all right. And, the first responders, I can guarantee you, are doing everything possible to make sure that those children and those students are taken care of.
Absolutely. Let me get the audience caught up very quickly. A short time ago, a bus carrying passengers, among them a high school band from Farmingdale, heading to Pennsylvania for what we understand was a band camp somewhere along the way, right here at exit 15 there in the town of Wawayanda in Orange County. It somehow came off the road and rolled down that embankment, and you saw it before where Newscopter 7 was on it, what was left of the bus. Pieces of it have come off as a result, and we are understanding now that some people who were on that bus have been rushed to area hospitals. This is happening near mile marker 11 in the westbound lanes, and as you can see, all the westbound lanes there are shut down as this investigation continues right now. In terms of the getting a helicopter to the scene if needed, Bob, I have you still on the phone. Retired FDNY firefighter Bob O'Brien is joining us. Much experience in rescue efforts. Tell me a little bit about the use of a helicopter and how that might be deployed in an area like this.
The helicopter would be to transport the most seriously injured people in order to save time with the traffic situation the way it is. They would, be flying those people to area medical centers for immediate triage surgery or whatever treatment might be necessary.
All right, I'm getting new information. My producer is asking me to check, which I don't have, and I'm going to ask my producer if they want to just tell me in my ear what it is that any update. We're still trying to get some information coming in. But Bob, I'm looking right now, different angle of this whole thing. We see the ladders being used to have access. Can you make out if there's actually a rescue effort going underway right now?
Again, I'm mobile and I'm not able to see that, but ladders would tell me that they're trying to get on top of that bus, especially if it's on its side, to be able to access through the emergency window exits. And for first responders to be able to get inside that bus and search and assess for what actually has happened, and search that bus for any people that might need to be extricated.
We just get some more information, Bob. Thank you for walking us through this, and I really appreciate having you here to give us your firsthand information in terms of being a first responder. As we said before, among the passengers on this board, members of the Farmingdale High School band camp. We understand they were heading to a band camp in They were heading to a band camp in Pennsylvania. It is scheduled to last from today until Sunday, so obviously they didn't make it. The band, one of the largest marching bands on Long Island, and we just got a statement from the Farmingdale School District. Let me read it to you. We were informed that there had been an accident with bus en route to Greeley, Pennsylvania for band camp. police and emergency responders on the scene, as well as district administration. We will provide another update when more information becomes available. We ask for your patience as we gather more details. This is from the vice president of the school district. So that's a confirmation of the people that we know on board, and there could be more, obviously, as we try to get more information. And Bob, you're dealing with children now in a thing like this. Does that change the dynamic of what you're doing when you're as a first responder?
Not really. I mean, everybody's treated the same. It's a lot harder on first responders when it's a child, when it's a children. From personal experience, it's, people are parents, and you put yourself in that position, like God forbid, it was you. So it's a little bit more difficult. Makes it a little bit more difficult.
And I want to tell the audience we appreciate you, Bob, helping us out. And you don't have access to the video, so I'm going to have to walk you through some of the stuff that we're looking at. I know you're on the road talking to us on the phone. And what you see on TV right now is a bus. On its side, it has rolled off an embankment, which was part of I-84 in the Wawayanda area. It rolled down the side, I would say maybe 100 yards, and it's in the middle of the brush on the road right now, and first responders are assessing the scene. Right now, back to the scene of the crash, we're counting out the emergency vehicles on the scene, and I would say there are is this considerable amount of turnout right now, and obviously the traffic is backed up on the roads, as I mentioned before, which is going to increase the difficulty of reaching the scene for first responders coming on that road. And I apologize, occasionally our camera will go out, Newscopter 7, and we'll try to get you more pictures when they come in, or even provide some video that we have already recorded for you. But this is the live scene, and you can see now a gathering of, in that one shot that we had, of first responders, emergency vehicles at the scene right now. And I now know, this just into us, is being handed to me, and I appreciate that, 5 critical condition right now. Again, among those on board this bus, students, the high school band from Farmingdale, and we don't know who the 5 critical condition are yet. All we know is that we're getting that early. The fear is, this is a bus carrying students, that there may be more than that, but we don't know at this point. It just can tell you that about 5 critical is all we know at this point, and they are being taken to Westchester Medical Center, where they will be getting the treatment as soon as, if they're not there already, they're certainly on the way to getting there. Again, so much we don't know. We don't know what caused this accident. We don't know why it suddenly ended up rolling down the side of the road, or any other circumstance inside. And we still don't know the true number of people who are on this board, or the condition of the driver, or the state of the situation with that driver when the accident happened. Of course, we're going to continue to break in and give you the very latest information. Again, a bus traveling to Pennsylvania for a band camp. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's a bus heading toward Pennsylvania, was going to be its final stop. On board that bus were members of a Farmingdale High School band, music band, that part of the school, and they were part of a band camp that they were hoping to take part of beginning today through the weekend. Clearly something happened along the way, causing that bus to go tumbling down the side of that embankment. You can see right now some of the first responders assessing the situation, and the feeling from my point of view is that they may have gotten everyone off the bus. I can't say that for sure, but there doesn't seem that sense of urgency from what I'm seeing right here. Hopefully they've gotten everyone out of there that needs to be, that they could get to and could provide first aid to. And when we find out where I can confirm that, I will definitely pass that on. But you can see the damage to this bus. It is severe. The top of that bus, as it tumbled down that road, caved in. You can see the seats. And I'm looking in now for the first time, getting a much better look. It does seem to be empty at this point. I'm praying that it is, because we don't want to imagine that anybody is still stuck on it. However, we are getting reaction coming in. Nassau County Executive, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble reading some notes that are being brought to me. What does it say?
Nassau County Police Department.
Nassau County Police Department.
They're in communication with the school district.
The Nassau County Police Department are in communication with the school district, and they're obviously offering help to the families and escorts to the hospital if they need it. And I apologize. I have Sade helping me here and other staff members giving me information, and we're trying to go through all the notes as they come in. I want to be able to give the audience the up-to-date information as we get it. I apologize. Some of this is coming in so fresh and so unfiltered that it is, I hesitate to say some of the things that I'm seeing. I'm just telling you what I know that we can report. You can see for your own eyes, this was a really difficult crash, one that is certainly understandable. We would cause serious injuries to anybody on board. At this point, as I said, we're only getting word at this point of 5 critical condition. We're going to get more information, obviously, as we continue to get into this a little deeper and find out more about this bus that went down. All happening near mile marker 11. This is in the westbound lanes of I-84 in the Wawayanda section of Orange County. Again, not far from, you can see on the map, that is not far from Legoland, over in Goshen, and I think that many of you may know it just from that. It's not that far from New York City in terms of the drive is concerned, although right now all the lanes on the westbound lanes are shut down because of this. Here you're looking at it from a different angle, and you can see it's right between the 2 roads, and there is a ditch of a sort where the embankment bends down. First responders now picking up, looking around, trying to get a better sense of what happened at that accident. Last check I did, it appeared that everyone is out of the bus, and you can see there's no sense of urgency right now from the first responders. So that would line up with my thoughts that at this point they've pulled everyone out of the bus, and that's my hope. I can't say for sure, but I mean it certainly looks like that. Common sense would tell you as you look at it. I think that the next part of this is trying to get to find out who was on the bus, exactly what happened to that bus, and get the conditions of those. When I talk about knowing who's on the bus, I only know so far, or being reported this far, of the high school band on board from Farmingdale High School. Hearts and prayers and wishes going out to the family of all the students who were on board that bus, and anyone else that might have been on that bus. Again, sources tell us 5 are in critical condition from Farmingdale High School. Now, all of them that we know about are at the Westchester Medical Center. We have crews heading to both the scene as well as the hospital. Marcus Solis is heading to the hospital. And again, before I mentioned the Nassau County Executive, but also the Nassau County Police are in communication with the school district. They're offering all the help they can, even police motorcades to the victims' families, to hospitals, wherever they can help out in this situation. Clearly, a community coming together to do what they can do. Bob, I'm talking on the phone now with retired FDNY firefighter Bob O'Brien, 14 years of experience in terms of rescues and helping the community. Bob, when we're looking at a story like this and we're talking about trying to get help to the victims of the family, it's just another layer of how this kind of impacts so many people, correct?
Yes, it is. But the police department, as you alluded to with the motorcades, will do everything possible to get those family members to the critically injured as soon as possible.
We're looking again from a different perspective, Newscopter 7. The bus on its side, it is just an ominous sight to see, because often in these kind of things, the passengers are not wearing seat belts. If it went down a bus like that, it rolled over onto its side, which means that whoever inside that bus were tossed and would suffer some form of traumatic injury. At this point, as I said, 5 critical condition, heading to Westchester Medical Center. Hopes are that they can be treated and they can deal with the problems that are there, that they may have occurred from this. But in terms of where this happened, again, it's I-84 in the Wawayanda section of Orange County. You're looking at live pictures, Newscopter 7. That whole area is going to be under investigation as first responders now assess the situation. Traffic is backed up for miles on Interstate 84. The crash happening almost an hour ago at this point, and as you can see, traffic is pretty much under control by the first responders, police, fire department, ambulances, as they try to block off that whole area and provide those that need to get to access to the bus the access that they need at this point. Bob O'Brien, let me ask you something. When you get a case like this, and a traumatic accident where people are involved. How soon after that can they begin the investigation into what happened?
I believe the investigation happens immediately. I mean, you have, the first priority is to get the injured to medical assistance as soon as possible. But almost immediately, I'm sure the state police are beginning to, track the tire marks as to the point of impact where that bus went off the road. So almost immediately.
And that's going to be important and critical to really understanding, because time is critical. The sooner you are to something like this, the more you're going to learn about it, but versus as time passes on. I want to let our audience know that we are on top of this story. We have a team of reporters heading to the scene. We've got Marcus Solis going to Westchester County Medical Center with the very latest. We have Anthony Johnson and Jim Dolan heading to the scene. We have Josh Einecker at a unification center where families can gather and where they can wait and get information firsthand from the first responders and the authorities as far as all this is concerned. We understand SUNY Orange County Community College is one of those sites, and of course Farmingdale High School staff are keeping the family and all those that close to the people that might have been on this war up to date on what happened. And I bring up Farmingdale again because we know that among those on board that bus was a high school band from Farmingdale High School. How many, I still don't know. We're still waiting to have information. And when I talk about the injured, I don't know if there's the 5 critical that were taken. I still do not know if those are the high school students that were on board that. But we also have, like I said, a team of reporters in there, and we're going to send NJ Burkett to Farmingdale High School to get information we can about who is on board and what they were hoping to do on this trip and how this has turned on everyone. Again, let's get you up to speed. This happened about an hour ago. A passenger bus going down an embankment of Interstate 84 in Wawayanda in Orange County. You're looking at live pictures of what is the result of that going down that bus. You can see that they set up a ladder at some point, probably to do some of the extricating of anyone trapped inside that bus. Can't tell if anyone was ejected, can't tell if they opened doors, or can't tell if anybody walked out. Still too early to tell you because you can see the bus is on its side, but there is a massive police response. Dozens of passengers, at least dozens, were on board that bus, and we told you about at least the high school band from Farmingdale that was on that bus. For all we know, they could have been the only passengers, but we don't know. Again, we do know 5 critical. Do not know who the 5 critical are. Do not know the condition of the bus driver or any background on the bus driver. We do not know any story on the bus. These are things that we'll be doing as we follow up on this story. Does the bus pass all the maintenance records that was necessary? Had there been any history of problems with the bus? Questions that the first responders, the investigators, and us here at Eyewitness News will be asking as this story moves forward. But it's a frightening scene to see a bus carrying passengers tossed down a side of an embankment the way this one was, and obviously leading to so many injuries. I'm looking at some notes that are being passed to me. Unfortunately, I don't want to pass that one on yet. We're looking onto some more information. So here, let me take you back to the road here we're looking at, and you can see they've closed off I-84. You can see police are in control of that. The first, some of the ambulances and some of the other parts of the road are now blocked off. It's a sizable condition. There's a Medivac hospital. We talked to you about one that was called on the scene, and we knew of another one that was asked to be on standby. Clearly, no word now yet if anyone's about to be transported or if it's just there in case they need it for other purposes. But you can see the seriousness. Clearly, if they're medevacing people out of that area, it's clearly a situation which is one that requires a tremendous amount of concern to the people who are on the scene right now. The gathering there, it's going to take some time now to really assess the problem and in turn assess what to do. The next step, once they've taken care of the passengers and really dealt with that aspect of it, is going to be the investigation and the removal of the bus. Last, of course, is the removal of the bus. But there's going to be several levels of effort that will have to occur, as we've had some experience, sadly, with buses that have had accidents. We're told now, I've been mentioning to you that the Westchester Medical Center is where a number of the victims have been sent to, but they're also being sent to another hospital in Orange County as well. I'm going to just ask my Garnett Hospital in Orange County, and I apologize. I'm getting notes handed to me, so some of it I'm just trying to make out right now to have a better sense of it. If you could just hang on a second, I've got more information coming in. Could you just tell me what this? What is?
Speaking to him.
Who is this?
Ned Einstein.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I have a guest who can help us put a little more sense to what we're looking at. I'm dealing with, on the phone, Ned Einstein, president of the Transportation Alternatives. Ned, tell me a little bit about your background and how you can help us better understand what's happening here.
Okay, I'm an expert witness. I've been an expert witness off and on, but most of what I've done since 1989, and I worked on about 700 public transportation cases of all kinds. I've been an expert on 5 or 6 catastrophic motor coach accidents. I've actually done I don't recall doing one against Regency involving, which is, I think, a small family-owned company in Long Island. But I know about these types of accidents. I know the regulatory environment this is in, and I know some things that are immediately that are not wrong about this, and I can give you a number of possibilities that would be the cause of this.
Well, yeah, do you have access?
It won't be the actual cause of this. Doesn't sound to me like it's. I've been watching a little bit of TV. Okay. I don't think the cause of this is going to be known for days or weeks or months.
No, obviously, a thorough investigation is ahead, no question about it. But I'm taking that you do have visual. You can see what we're seeing, correct?
I want to know. Can't both talk to. I can see visually. I'm watching TV now, but I have the sound off so I can talk to you. I can't do both.
Okay.
But I'm not going to learn much more. No one is going to learn much more than I'm going to tell you about this.
I hear you.
From watching a whole day worth of TV.
Okay, Ned. Well, let me just add one sad update. I just learned that there is one fatality on this bus.
Oh, geez, that's
yeah,
too bad.
We talked about the 5 critical condition. I don't know if one of the 5 that I mentioned earlier is among this fatal, but it's been reported that at least we're being told 1 fatality. So Ned, so far you see a bus like this roll down the embankment. Clearly a traumatic accident with people on board. What's your first take on it?
My first take on it, well, I have 2 sets of takes. There's no such, I can't isolate a single thing. My first take on it is that this is the appropriate type of vehicle that these students should have been riding on. They were on a field trip. So this is a better bus for that. It's a motor coach. It's a better vehicle than a school bus would have been. And it sounds like the trip, given the time it is now, it sounds like this trip probably began about 7 in the morning, which is not too long. And the total distance from where it was in Farmington to the destination in Greeley was only 3 hours and 17 minutes, according to Google, or 125 miles. So it's a reasonable trip. It's an appropriate vehicle for it. The vehicle was not overloaded with students because that vehicle seats 57 people, and there are only, I think, 46 on board. Now these are the sort of the positive things that aren't wrong in the beginning. Now, about the causes of this, there are a number of possibilities, and I'll give you some of the obvious ones, and I want to give you a possible cause that would be a real severe criticism of our government. But here are the things that are most likely going to be the cause of this. One of the following, probably not more than one. Most of these accidents happen from driver fatigue, but this doesn't sound like that kind of a scenario. The driver was trip was only 3 hours and 17 minutes long, according to Google, and from Farmington at this point, the vehicle had only been on the road for maybe an hour and a half or something like that. So, but a lot of these accidents do happen after the driver's been on the road in the morning, after only an hour or 2. So it could be fatigue-related, and I'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. Could be things like a tire blowing out.
Right.
There could be other vehicle defects, but that would be the most logical of them. There could be any number of esoteric problems with the vehicle itself. It could have been steering problems.
Ned, it sounds to me like you know a lot about this particular bus. Does this bus, do you know, did it have seatbelts?
Well, it has, of importance, it has a pneumatic suspension system, which is better for ride comfort and safety, and it has pneumatic brakes. So if it had to brake, it had to have good brakes. But that has nothing to do with the things that would take it off the road. And it only has one front door. A school bus would have one front door. If it had been a transit bus, it would only be 40 feet long. If it was normal, it would have 2 doors. If it were a 60-foot articulated bus, it would have 3 doors. So evacuation would have been a little bit easier. Evacuation is hard here because they only have one door to work with.
Right.
And they have a second door because it has a wheelchair lift on it. And you can see where they have this ladder, you can see, if anyone's watching television, there's a ladder, and right next to that ladder looks like there might be a rear door that's only a wheelchair lift, except it doesn't quite look like it to me. So it may be an older vehicle because lifts were required on motor coaches in 2001,
right,
according to the Americans with Disabilities Act, and now this is 22 years later. So I'm surprised I'm not seeing something that's pronounced as a lift door.
Right.
It should be wheelchair lift equipped, but that would only affect evacuation. That wouldn't affect the accident. Back to the accident. Other reasons could be this coach could have been, and by the way, it's a coach, not a bus. There's a big difference. It's taller. It has a higher center of gravity. Only has one front door. It's usually 45 feet long. Some might be 40, but most of them are 45 feet long. It wasn't overloaded, which means this is, I don't care how much band equipment they have. They couldn't have had enough to add enough weight to equal, more than 12 more kids, or even adult-sized kids. And when I say 57-passenger bus, that's adults.
Right.
A school bus has benches that would allow for either 84 elementary school kids for the largest bus, or 2/3 of that amount if they were adults or high school kids, let's say, or middle school kids. But this bus had, if these kids were going to band, whether they were elementary school kids or seniors in high school, they still didn't overload the bus. More likely did not with their equipment. So they probably didn't overload the suspension system, and that would have compromised the ability for the driver to control the bus. So It doesn't sound like that's a problem. Mechanical things, again, I would look first at a tire blowout.
Right.
I don't think there would be a fire even in a tire here because the bus was traveling. I worked on some cases like that, the Hurricane Katrina thing where the tires caught on fire, but that bus was caught in traffic for 12 hours. This one wasn't. So it could be, the tires might have been bald, one of them might have been blown out. He could have hit, another possibility is he could have hit something in the road. A fourth possibility could be he could have been cut off by another vehicle.
Right.
A fifth possibility could have been if there was, at this time of day, even moderate traffic, but a few vehicles were bunched up in front of him, and suddenly one of the vehicles in his queue in front of him stopped short for some reason, and this bus was too close to the vehicle in front of it. The bus would have to brake and possibly swerve, and that combination could have blown him off the road. We don't know which lane he was in. We'll assume, for argument's sake, it was most likely in the left lane to roll over to the left, but not necessarily.
Right.
If the left lane were empty and he were in the middle lane and had to change lanes quickly, he could have rolled right over past the outside lane, which is the left lane, and rolled down the hill. He could have been distracted. That happens more with school kids than with adults, although it happens more on school buses. But school bus drivers are trained in passenger management, and they're trained about certain things to do when the kids act up.
Ned, you really
motor coach driver I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying you're really doing a wonderful job taking a step by step through all the questions that investigators are going to ask. I just got to add a couple of new things that have come in while you were kind of assessing for me. Again, for the audience who's just joining us right now, catastrophic accident, passenger bus going down an embankment. This happening in Orange County, town of Wawayanda. This is Interstate 84. You can see the bus right there. We know of one fatality. This bus was carrying students from Farmingdale High School. They were on board, they were part of a band that was going to band camp. And we do know that there are 5 critical injuries. All of the ones that are in critical condition are juvenile. Ned, stay with me. We're going to continue bringing this news and covering this news online on ABC7 NY. We're going to go off the air in just a few seconds here, but we will have new information right at the bottom of the screen, and we'll have a complete wrap-up at Eyewitness News first at 4. To all our viewers online, I'm David Navarro. We continue to cover the very latest on a catastrophic accident happening in Orange County where a passenger bus went down an embankment, and as you can see, it was a very traumatic accident. It rolled down that embankment for several feet. We do know of one fatality. Do not know the identity of who was the fatality is. We do know that this was a bus carrying a high school band on board that bus. It was coming from Farmingdale, Long Island. It was heading to Pennsylvania for a high school, for a band camp. Along the way, when this accident happened, they've now determined they've extricated the people that needed to get out of that bus. We do know of 5 in critical condition. We do know that the Orange County executive is telling us that all those in critical condition are juveniles. It's a frightening thought, but it's what we know at this point. They have set up Unification Center at different sites for family and for friends and those that need to know to give them information. They've also set up something at SUNY Orange County Community College to help out, and also at Farmingdale High School. They are staying on board and helping escort those in need to these either to the hospital or to this Unification Center if need be, depending on what it is. We've been looking on this story now for almost an hour now as we've continued to follow a bus that rolled down that hill. As our expert who was talking to us just a moment was pointing out, there is a host of reasons that could cause that, and at this point we just don't know whether it was distracted driving, whether someone cut the bus off, whether there was a mechanical failure. It's just too early to say, and we don't know the condition of the bus or if the bus driver can talk to investigators at this point. But we do know that that bus was carrying students and it was heading to Pennsylvania, and at some point it lost control, and you can see the slope of the embankment. It went down before it finally came to a stop. All along the way it was just rolling and clearly causing a lot of problems and causing a lot of injuries. First responders quickly got to the scene, but as a result the road on I-84 had to be shut down to traffic, and that slowed down a little bit of the response, but in reality they got there quickly. A medevac helicopter was brought to the scene, another one put on standby to help out in any way they could. The victims have been taken to 2 hospitals, Garnet Hospital in Orange County and Westchester Medical Center. Of course, we continue to follow that with our team of reporters to the scene. We're covering it from every angle as we can. We got Marcus Solis going to the hospital. We've got reporters Anthony Johnson and Jim Doling headed to the scene. We have Josh Einiger heading to a Unification Center. And of course, we'll continue to follow from every other angle that we can, bring you the latest information on this terrible accident. At this point, we have more questions than we have answers. We still don't know the identity of any of the passengers. We were speaking to an accident expert who looked into the bus, and this is from his information. He says there were 57 people. It could carry 57 people on this board, but 46 were on board. We have not confirmed that yet. However, this is what the expert who was looking into it told us about this bus. Of course, too early to know if this bus had any history of problems. In fact, the expert I was talking to, Ned Einstein, president of Transportation Alternatives. Ned, have you had a chance to look into the history on this bus yet? I know it's early,
no,
but it's still, I'm just curious.
I could easily, other than I could get, I don't even have a vehicle identification number or anything. I wouldn't know about the history of this bus.
Okay.
And there's a lot of things I don't know, but there's still a few important things I would like to mention.
Yes.
I mentioned before, and I'll overview in 15 seconds quickly, this could have been fatigue-related. It could have been a tire blowout or some defect in the bus. Could have been cut off by another vehicle. He could have been tailgating and couldn't stop in time and swerved and rolled off the embankment. I don't know how. It doesn't look like the shoulder was even, and I'm looking at the TV now, it doesn't look like the left shoulder was wide enough to contain a bus. I don't know if there was a guardrail there. It depends on.
It doesn't appear there is.
Most of the. Pardon?
It does not appear like there's a guardrail there.
Yeah, that's what most of it didn't. I saw something that looked like it. So it didn't go through a guardrail. Wouldn't have stopped this anyway because of the mass of the bus. He could have been distracted. Now, there's a couple interesting things that are important as a regulatory matter. I want to bring up a concept called shift inversion that none of your listeners who are not in my field would even have heard of. Shift inversion is the fact that you to be safe, your body sleeps sort of the same. Whether you're awake or not, physically, your body is sort of sleeps the same 24 hours or so day after day. Now, in Canada and Europe and Australia, a driver cannot begin a shift more than 3 hours earlier or later than he or she can the day before or the shift before.
Right.
That's because otherwise you get what I call bus lag. It's a term I coined, but it's sort of like jet lag, same principle. In this country, a failure of our government is our regulatory agencies don't require that. And you can, as long as there's 8 hours between one shift and the next, you can get right back on, and you can drive one shift. You can be driving every day like 9 to 5 or something, or let's say noon to 8, a better example, or noon to 10. You're allowed. By the way, you're allowed to drive 10 hours out of every 15 you're on duty. Now, this is a short trip, so that didn't come into play. But when the driver began his shift or her shift, I don't know if it was a male or female driver, whenever that he or she began a shift, if the shift that driver began the day before was more than 3 hours earlier or later, the driver's body would not have a chance to adjust to the time differences.
Right. Well, I think it's important. I got to just mention real quick, Ned. I mean, you're going through every possible scenario, and you know what? That's what we need to do is kind of think of all the options. But we also want to make sure the audience knows we don't know if the driver was cut off. We don't know if the driver had a medical episode, as you pointed out earlier. Actually,
it's another excellent point too.
Yeah.
He could have had a
right.
seizure or something like that. It's unlikely because But anyway, things could have happened. Sure, he could have had a heart attack. I'm sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
No. I just wanted to make sure because you really we're making such excellent points, and that the kind of things that of course the investigators are all going to be asking these very same question as they start to work their way down through what caused this accident. We're still really early in this scene. We're still at the point where we're trying to figure out, is everyone taken care of? Is everyone okay? Is everything done that we can be done to help the people that were involved in this accident right now? And Ned, you know, you've done so many of these accidents. Time is key to these things, right? And before you answer that, I just want to let the audience know that I'm going to step away for a moment, and Sade Bedouin-Wah is going to step in. We're getting ready for the Eyewitness News first at 4, and so we're doing not only team coverage on the air, but also here at the anchor desk. So Ned, talk to me about how time is critical in investigation. investigation like
Okay,
this?
time is, there's other things I wanted to mention important, but to get on your question, time is critical because there's what they call a golden hour of serious injuries. Normally, if you can get someone into a top-notch medical facility in an hour after an incident, the chances of this person living are much greater than if they're not. So the responders are probably going to do a terrific job. There are a couple hospitals nearby. Fort Jervis, I understand, has one. There must be a few others. Even where I live in Warwick, there's an excellent hospital. So they'll probably get these people, except that because of where this vehicle is in an embankment, they can't take ambulances down the embankment. So they have to carry on stretchers. They have to get into this bus. It only has one door. They have to get all these people off. They only have one door. They can't evacuate them quickly. They're probably doing everything they can. They may be cutting sections of the bus apart so they can get them out. There may or may not be a sort of a rear door with wheelchair lift. If there is, they'd have two doors to do something like this. So it's going to take them time to get the people out of the bus. And these people, you got to be careful. You can't move certain people if they look a certain way. If they look, they have a broken neck. So this golden hour may go fast. If any passengers have hit their head badly and their brain is bleeding, they have less chance of living. Also, if their air passages or anything are not flowing, as soon as the blood stops getting to your brain in 90 seconds, your chances of living or not being a vegetable are pretty much slim. So that's how tight the time limits are for some of these things. I'm sure the responders are well aware of everything I'm saying, but more people could die because of the time element. And an excellent point you brought up about this. There just may be not enough time if people are really seriously injured, and they certainly could be in an accident like this. One of the interesting things about the accidents, by the way, is that it is a federal requirement, has been since 2001, for all of these vehicles to have three-point occupant restraint systems on them. In other words, a shoulder belt and a seat belt. But there are no requirements for usage. And you've got school kids excited to be going to a band. So how many of them were wearing their seat belts, we don't know. The seat spacing is kind of tight, and because of that, a lot of kids might not have been thrown around too much, except since the bus rolled over. We don't know how many times it rolled over. It seems to have rolled over, from what I'm looking at, probably 3/4 of a roll, because it ended up, 1/4 of a roll, because it ended up on the left side, or what we call the street side. So it may have only rolled over 90 degrees, and the people who were on the bottom of the bus, hit their heads hit the windows and things of that sort. The people on the right side of the bus, the gravity flew them 6 or 8 feet on top of the rest of the stuff on the other side of the bus. So the people on the right side of the bus were more likely injured more than the people on the left side. But sometimes the people on the left side, as the bus is crashing, people go through the windows, and the weight of the bus ends up on top of them. They get crushed. So they may not even be able to get every single person out of this bus until they can pull the bus up. So they can't drive vehicles down there. It's hard to get cranes down this embankment. I don't think helicopters can lift. The military ones, if you get a couple of them, can probably lift this bus off of people who might be trapped underneath it. So the medical stuff is really wild. The possibilities are like endless.
Yeah,
and,
Ned, there's so many possibilities, and we're still trying to effort that information as we speak. I'm still going to keep you on, but for those of you who are just joining us, I'm Sade Bedarenwa, and we continue our live coverage of this terrible accident. It was a passenger bus that went down an embankment off Interstate 84 in Wawayanda. We're still watching live pictures from the scene. We do know at this point that one person was killed. There are 5 people in critical condition, and we are told that there are at least 46 people who were injured. They are being taken to 2 hospitals. One is Westchester County Medical Center, and the other is Garnett Health Medical Center in Wallkill. This happened at around 1:20. We do know that it was the Farmingdale High School marching band. They were trying to get to a marching band camp. Again, this happened on I-84 westbound at exit 15AB. We are told all lanes are closed. And right now we're trying to effort any new information. We do have complete coverage. We've got Anthony Johnson and Jim Dolan. They are headed to the scene now. We also have Josh Einiger, who is at the Unification Center, where parents will be attending, trying to find out any information about their loved ones, what happened. We also have N.J. Burkett, who is headed to Farmingdale High School now. Ned, first of all, thank you so much for your expertise in this. You are president of the Transportation Alternatives. You have covered so many catastrophic bus accidents. When you look at this scene, how does it compare to what you've investigated in the past?
I've seen some that are worse in terms of the carnage. I've been involved in one where 21 people were killed. I've been involved in a few where one, I remember, where 5 were killed, another one where only 1 was killed. But what caused the accident and the severity of the accident and these things are not necessarily proportional to the number of people who were killed. There are all kinds of crazy reasons people get killed in motor coach accidents, and it depends on what's known as the accident orientation. And we know that this was a rollover, but the vehicle traveled, forward for some degree. It couldn't stop on a dime and roll over, so it may have struck some other vehicle in front of it first, and then it rolled over. It might have been struck by a car on the right side and pushed over, and all of, where the zones of intrusion are, in other words, where the vehicle was penetrated by other things, would affect who was hurt and where they were, and where people are seated in the bus has an impact on this as well. If the bus was struck by a car in the middle of it, the people on the right side of the bus in that area could have been injured much worse, or would have been injured much worse.
And Ned, and speaking of that, Ned, I'm looking at the video that's coming in, and you can see a ladder on the side of that bus. So,
right,
first of all, yeah, it must have been so difficult for first responders to actually get to that scene. But then they had to, get that ladder in and then climb up over the bus to try to get to some of the victims. As you said, there is a federal requirement to have a shoulder belt and a seat belt, but there's no enforcement of that. So we don't know if those students.
There's no requirement for usage, and it's not. If you have them on a school bus, this is important. It would be important, even though it's not a requirement, except in New Jersey, oddly enough, it's a requirement for usage, but only on a school bus. But generally, a school bus driver would do his or her best to get the kids to use the seat belts. In a motor coach, it's not so much the industry standard that a driver should try to encourage people to. Kids may be taking a nap. Well, they wouldn't be usually this early in the morning. They'd be excited and stuff. You don't know also how many kids were in and out of their seats. A school bus driver, if kids are out of their seats, a good school bus driver would stop the bus immediately and call a dispatcher. A motor coach driver should keep the people in the seats, but they have less of a tendency to emphasize this as much as a school bus driver.
Yeah, so and then we all know when we were kids, you're on the school bus, you're taking a trip, you're talking and laughing with your friends, you're switching seats. So, that is a possibility.
All this stuff goes on. The important thing, an interesting thing here, I find interesting, and I think your audience should find interesting, is that you've got school kids, but they're not riding a school bus. They're riding a bus that's designed mostly to take adults, and many of them elderly, on trips like this or other trips. So you've got kids not on the wrong bus, on the right type of bus for them. This is a safer bus generally for this type of trip than a school bus would be for this type of accident scenario. But you've got a mix of kids on a bus that's usually ridden by adults, and the drivers are used to managing adults, and they're not trained in passenger management as obsessively as school bus drivers are. And it's important to mention here also that because of all the possibilities, and I didn't get quite to explain one of them before, it would be a mistake for people to jump to the conclusion that this is necessarily the driver's fault or even the company's fault.
Right.
There's so many variables. These people could be not negligent in any way, and other things could have happened. The odds are there are more possibilities where it might be the fault of the bus or the driver than there are of these others, but not necessarily. I'd even get to oddball things that could happen. There could have been a a spot of grease on a bad spot of grease on the freeway. That's unlikely to cause something like this. The first place I would look would be driver fatigue. And by the way, the National Transportation Safety Board, which is an independent group, not a part of the administration, does a report on these kinds of accidents, these major accidents, particularly when there's fatality. So in 6 or 12 or 9 months or whatever, a big, thick report's going to come out. I myself don't have a lot of faith in the competence of the people in the National Transportation Safety Board, but they're, in any event, most of the stuff in that report is going to be probably accurate. They're going to count the kids right.
Ned,
a lot of times they don't interview.
Pardon me for interrupting you for one moment.
Yeah.
We are actually getting a statement from Governor Kathy Hochul. She says that she's been briefed on the tragedy in Orange County where a bus filled with high school students was involved in an accident leading to injuries and one fatality. At my direction, personnel from the New York State Police and the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services are on site to assist local emergency response teams. We are grateful for the first responders whose speedy action saved lives, and we will continue to support them however necessary. Our hearts are with all who are impacted by this horrific situation. Neil, unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut you off from there. We're going to regroup, get back with you at first at 4, and we're going to continue to get back all of this information. We're going to come back to streaming, but you can get the latest at Eyewitness News first at 4. Thank you.
Good afternoon once again on this somber afternoon, the frightening afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bill Ritter in the Eyewitness newsroom, and what you're looking at right now is a charter bus, one of 6 charter buses rented by the Farmingdale High School on Long Island for a band event, band competition in Pennsylvania. 6 buses, one of them tipped over right there in Orange County off I-84 eastbound. It has been a horrific day. 1 person confirmed dead. 5 of the maybe freshmen, perhaps freshmen at Farmingdale High School are in critical condition. And 40 other people were hurt to varying degrees. We don't know who was the person who died. We are told that it may have been an adult, looks like it was, we assume that that may have been the driver. We don't know. We don't have any. There are so many questions we do not know, and we're not going to try to conjecture. We have been talking this afternoon to the Orange County Executive, Steve Newhouse, I should say. Steve, do you hear me? County Executive?
Yeah, Bill, thanks for having me on.
Well, I'm sorry it's under these conditions, Mr. Newhouse. Tell us what you know of the latest. You just heard me do a quick wrap-up. I want to know if you know anything different than that and what your thoughts are and what's going on right now.
Right now, we have a number of people. There was about 40-plus individuals that were on that bus. Every one of whom, to our knowledge, has been taken out and is getting emergency medical care. Obviously, it was a very traumatic incident for all that were on board. We do have about 5 that are critical. The governor announced the 1 fatality. I won't get into that, but it was an adult, as she confirmed as well. The bus is being moved just to make sure that there's nothing else that we missed. Obviously, you have a lot of the fog of war in this situation, how many people are on it, where it came from. That is all being, hearsay until we have everything cleaned up and confirmed. But we do have a reunification center that is set up right now at SUNY Orange in Middletown, and that is for the parents and loved ones of those that were on that bus. And we will be having a press conference at 6 o'clock with the New York State Police as well.
All right, so you're going to be talking at that 6 p.m. We're probably going to take some of that, of course, for our Eyewitness News at 6. Let me ask you a couple questions. I don't know how much time you have, but I do have some questions. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm looking at the bus. We're all looking at the bus, and it appears that the front end, where the driver's window is, was just crushed out. I'm assuming that whoever was there took the brunt of it. I'm a lay person. What was your? Go ahead.
That is what the initial findings show. But when most people that are on the bus don't wear a seatbelt when they're in the back, and as you can imagine, when you're tossed around, people were tossed all over the place. So we're not going to confirm that the driver was that individual until we have that provided from like an accident reconstruction team. People switch spots. It's a long trip to Long Island, from Long Island to Pennsylvania. You know how traffic can get, so we're not going to speculate, but we do confirm that that was an adult, the 1 fatality right now that I can confirm that the governor mentioned.
Right. We don't know what we can do. We can conjecture all we want. Obviously, the driver would have been an adult, but I'm assuming we're told that it may have been freshmen on that bus. But whoever it is, they're young people in high school, and I assume that they weren't alone without some sort of adult supervision.
Absolutely. Majority were juveniles, and there were adults that were with them as well, keeping them as advisors. So we're hoping for the best. They have great emergency care between Orange County's hospitals and Westchester Medical. They are there right now, and we're happy that we were able to get them to the care. But right now, a lot of them are critical condition, and we're asking everybody to keep them in their prayers.
Well, of course. Let me ask you this, because we got there in our helicopter about a half hour after we first became aware of it, and it seemed that the first responders there had already, as it appears now, still sort of calmed down. The worst of the triage was over. They were taken to the hospital or whisked away somewhere else and going to the Orange County facility where they're going to meet up with parents and whatnot. Is that your indication that it was all cleaned up quickly?
Absolutely. Our number 1 first priority on any accident is getting the injured out of that situation and getting them to emergency care.
Yeah. So
when the 911 calls originally came out, we had helicopters launched before we can even get a full assessment, because time is of the essence. And in an incident like this, you cannot waste time, and that's what happened. And first responders did I think a professional, great job getting these people out of that bus and to first care immediately.
And just where were the first responders from? I assume everywhere.
Absolutely. You know, the first responders are from state police that are actually policing that area, but you have number of emergency management on that we have these mutual aid agreements. So firefighters from all recovering. When we have something this big, we call in a cavalry. We do not wait. So we bring in extra resources.
Okay.
So we do not come up short.
Understood. You know, you said something a couple of minutes ago, Mr. County Executive, about seatbelts. I, for one, try to wear one wherever I am. I feel a little weird when there's not. What is the procedure here with buses? What's the law? Do they have to have seatbelts in there? If not, why not? And is this maybe a call to action if it's not required?
I'm not sure, but I mean, if you want to be safe, you wear you wear the seatbelt on there. But you know, it's also how do you police it too? You know, the bus driver is usually the only person in command of the vehicle, and he's trying or she's trying to drive the bus. They're not going up and down the aisle to see who has it on correctly. So, but you know, just like anything else, if you're in a moving vehicle, if you want to be safe, the safest thing is to wear your seatbelt. Yeah,
no question. You know, you look at the scene; it's clearly going to take a long time to right this bus on. There's a ladder there that I guess people were withdrawn from where people were withdrawn from the bus who were still on that bus. How long is this going to take? Do you know how that is? Because I know traffic is a real mess there right now.
I think, you know, unfortunately, we're used to a lot of accidents on these major highways. Most of them tractor-trailer rollovers, and you'd be surprised how quick we can clear them up to try to keep the roads open and preventing further, problems. So I think that once the accident reconstruction is completed, which is pretty quickly with the state police, you're going to see this place cleaned up and open for traffic so we can get people through.
Any ideas, estimates of how long it might take to right that bus?
I would say right now we've still got some time because of the severity of the accident. So right now I wouldn't want to speculate, but if anybody's in the area, I would have them take an alternate route.
Well, you're the chief executive of Orange County. How dangerous is this highway?
You know, you never know. Who knows if somebody was distracted or if the tire blew out or, you know, somebody fell asleep or had a medical emergency. So you always have to watch. I mean, I drive all the time, and I'm always looking at other people that are having situations. So you really need to be on your A game when you're driving, and unfortunately accidents do happen. And this is no different than anywhere else in the country. I
told you I could talk to you for an hour. I did say that. But let me just ask you a question. You're going to have a press conference at 6 o'clock live. We're going to go on our air right now. We're on our streaming newscast. We're going to go on our air. I'm going to be anchoring it at 5 o'clock along with Sade. And I'm just wondering if we can ask you to do something we just did right now, perhaps not as long,
sure.
About 5 o'clock, sometime during the 5 o'clock hour.
Yeah, I mean, things are continuing to update, so we could definitely update you at 5 o'clock.
That would be great. So I'm going to have someone call your office, Mr. County Executive, if that's possible. And we'd love to have you because I think a lot of people, listen, this is the kind of event that taxes us in ways that we don't really fully appreciate, but know that it does. And certainly for parents who send their kids, their very young kids in high school, to these school events. And this is what could happen. It doesn't often happen. It rarely happens. But when it does, you know what it does, Steve. And I assume, do you have a family?
Absolutely. I got 4 little kids.
Okay,
so, yeah,
so you know this.
Definitely hits home.
You have all the responsibility for the entire Orange County citizenry, and yet also as a father, I know that it must affect you. And how is it affecting you?
Look, you know, it makes you think. You know, I'm like, my God, do I tell my kids to wear a seatbelt when they wear the bus, when they're on the bus? And when you put somebody, when your kids ask you to go to this or that, and did they get permission slips? And you know, these are the type of unfortunate things that happen. And you know, when I was a kid, I went all over the place, and my parents, you know, we put our trust in the bus driver, but sometimes there's unforeseen situations, and you know, I don't want to speculate on it, but unfortunately, accidents happen. You know, I got 500,000 people in my county, and my number one priority is that if something does happen, I have the men and women with the right tools to get there to help people when they need them.
We're looking, Steve, at this bus, which is on its side. I don't know whether it flipped over. We know it overturned. I don't know if it flipped once. It may have, because it just crushed the driver's seat area, and so I assume that happened by going on its top, upside down at some point. I want to ask it a different way. If, and I know it's an if, but if there were no seatbelts there, is there a way, and what is the procedure to make sure that finally we have seatbelts and even shoulder harnesses on a bus like this with what happened on these modes of public transportation?
You know, I am not a guy that can give an expert opinion on the safety on these things, but, you know, unfortunately, when you have a bus carrying that many people, when it rolls over, and you're going to have it is a traumatic event, and you know, we're hoping that the people that are right now getting cared for at our local hospitals are going to pull through, and that literally is our priority. I'll leave the accident reconstruction and the safety procedures for people that are above my pay grade.
So I understand that, but I know what you're feeling, and I know you don't have control over that. But boy, as a parent, you just think you want your kid in a seatbelt, and that's no question. Steve Newhouse, I know this is difficult, and so I appreciate very much for our listeners in the tri-state, including Orange County, getting information as best and as fast as we can. Steve Newhouse, the county executive of Orange County, we really appreciate it. And we'll see you for our 5 o'clock edition of Eyewitness News, and good luck to you, sir. Our fingers are crossed.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Steve Newhouse, the county executive of Orange County, wrapping up what appears to be, right now anyway, a situation where all people are gone from there, either in the hospital or getting attended to by some sort of medical people. And then, of course, one person we are told confirmed died. This group was one of 6 buses that were heading to a band event in Pennsylvania. I assume it was partly for the weekend because it's Thursday. This is from the Farmingdale High School. Most of them were band members on Long Island. We are at Long Island. We are having reporters and our chopper over the scene in Orange County, and we'll have complete coverage beginning on Eyewitness News first at 4. A horrible scene. It could have been worse, but it wasn't good. A bus overturning, a charter bus, one of 6 that were going there. The other 5 turned around and have gone home. I'm Bill Ritter in the Eyewitness Newsroom. That's all. Wish them the best, and our fingers are crossed. Thank you for watching. Again, Eyewitness News first at 4 starts in 15 minutes.
One RF1, 2 RF2 1 2 3, 3 RF3 1 2 5 RF5.